An annual salary of $10,000. This used to be a number with special significance. It was the finish line, the symbol of success. Meaning you had a house, a double garage, family vacations, and a quietly growing retirement savings account. If in 1985 you told your parents that one day you would earn a six-figure annual salary, they would surely celebrate it with great enthusiasm. Time flies, and here we are at the present. Nowadays, more than half of Americans with an annual salary of $100,000 or more are actually living like moonlighters. This is exactly the same as how those with an annual salary of only $35,000 describe their lives. Moreover, these data do not come from some unknown blog post, but rather from authoritative institutions such as the Federal Reserve and CNBC. It also comes from a brand new report by Kearney. This report was released just a few weeks ago in March 2026, and it bluntly described many people earning six-figure salaries as walking on thin ice. Please note that this is the wording of the original report and not my own fabrication. So, how did we end up here? With an annual salary of $100,000, how did it transform from being the symbol of a comfortable life for the upper middle class to a perilous situation just one step away from financial collapse? Become the new generation of working poor. This is precisely the topic we are going to delve into today. I assure you, after watching this video, when you look at your salary slip again, your perspective will be completely different. Without further ado, let's get straight to the point. First of all, let's start with the most basic mathematical calculations, because it is precisely from this point that the illusion of high salaries begins to show cracks. SmartAsset has released their annual 2026 research report, a report they conduct every year, in which they set a fixed annual salary benchmark of $100,000. They then plug this figure into a model that incorporates tax regulations. If you work in the Manhattan area and earn an annual salary of $100,000, after deducting federal taxes, state taxes, and city taxes, and adjusting for the actual cost of living in the area, your actual purchasing power is only $29,420. Please allow me to repeat this again. $29,420. This is the actual economic value of your $100,000 annual salary in Manhattan in 2025. This is far from being middle class. It is just barely enough to get by. San Francisco, $43,255. Los Angeles, $47,390. Boston, $49,980. Even in Seattle, which has no state income tax. Oklahoma City, $91,868. Corpus Christi, Texas, $91,110. Memphis, $88,454. But the key point is, the vast majority of the jobs that offer a salary of $100,000 are concentrated in cities where $100,000 is not really worth much. This is where the trap lies. The places that create high salaries are precisely the places that consume those high salaries. Just a side note, this situation is not static, it is getting worse. According to a study by SmartAsset in Manhattan and Philadelphia, the actual value of $100,000 has decreased by 3.1% in just 1 year. The decline in Queens, New York, was also over 2%. You are not merely struggling and barely holding on. Even before we discuss consumption habits, before we talk about lifestyle creep or all those bad financial decisions, this economic system itself has already been eroding the actual purchasing power of the income that we are told is high salary. And the vast majority of people even have no awareness that this is happening to them. Okay, now let's break it down specifically. When this $100,000 annual salary is subjected to the test of real life, what kind of picture will it present? According to data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average monthly expenditure for American families currently stands at approximately $6,545, which amounts to about $78,500 per year. This is merely the average. Please increase this figure by 15 to 30% based on your location. Let's take a look at what a realistic monthly budget would be for someone with an annual salary of $100,000, such as someone living in a medium-sized city like Denver or Austin, after deducting federal taxes, state taxes, FICA, Federal Insurance Contributions Act, and various deductions for employer-provided benefits. Your after-tax income varies depending on the state, ranging from approximately $6,200 to $6,500 per month. Housing expenses. Here, it is not even referring to a luxurious mansion, but merely a two-bedroom apartment or a moderate mortgage. In such markets, this expense can easily reach $1,800 to $2,400 per month. The affordability of housing has actually worsened. The report states that currently 22.7 million rental households are facing the problem of excessive housing cost burden. This means they spend more than 30% of their income on rent. And among these households, there are many with six-figure incomes. Car loan plus car insurance. As of 2026, the monthly expense of around $600 to $800 is quite common. Currently, the average monthly payment for new cars is hovering around $740. The situation for used cars is no better. Health insurance, even with employer subsidies. If you want to purchase a family health insurance plan, the cost of food for a family, according to the Moderate Dietary Plan set by the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA. For a family of four, the current monthly expense has exceeded $1,100. Water, electricity, gas, internet, and phone bills. This is another expense, ranging from $350 to $450 if there are children in the family. Just for childcare costs alone, the national average exceeds $1,100 per child per month. And in the major metropolitan areas, this figure can easily double. A recent analysis shows that the average annual child care cost for raising two children is as high as $28,190. Now, add in the expenses for repaying student loans, streaming services, software, gym memberships, and those applications that you even forgot you had subscribed to. A 2025 survey by CNET found that the average monthly subscription expense for an ordinary American is $90, and the money spent each year on services that you never even used is nearly $200. So, let's make a total account for our hypothetical Denver family. This is a family consisting of a couple and a child, with an annual total income of $100,000. Housing expenses, $2,100. Car expenses, $700. Insurance and healthcare, $450. Food expenses, $900. Childcare expenses, $1,200. Water, electricity, and phone bills, $375. Student loans, $400. And their actual after-tax income might be only around $6,400. So, in total, the remaining balance is only $25. This amount should be saved for emergencies, to cover any unexpected expenses. And this arithmetic result, it is not merely a matter of individual consumption habits. It reflects a deep structural problem. In the United States, in 2026, the cost, merely for maintaining basic survival, has already equaled the salary levels that were previously considered very generous. Of course, if I were to avoid delving into the behavioral aspect of this issue, it would be somewhat dishonest, because although this structural economic squeeze does exist and cannot be ignored, this phenomenon is undoubtedly extremely destructive for the accumulation of personal wealth. The underlying logic is very simple. As your income level increases, your spending also rises accordingly, and the two always grow simultaneously. This is not because you have to spend more money, but because you feel able to do so, and you feel should spend, even thinking that this is something you deserve. You received a $10,000 raise, but instead of saving the money in a savings account or investing it, you chose to upgrade your residence. You took out a loan to buy a newer car. Viewed individually, these decisions don't seem rash. Each one is small, reasonable, and feels like it was earned. But what if we look at them all together? The differences they create precisely determine whether you can successfully accumulate wealth or merely remain stagnant. By the end of 2025, Forbes magazine published an article listing lifestyle creep as one of the most covert and underestimated threats to achieving financial independence. The relevant data also support this view. According to the Income Paradox Survey report, released by the 2025 Harris Poll, which contains a set of data that is shocking, actually considered themselves to be in a situation of struggling to make ends meet, struggling desperately, or even on the verge of collapse financially. That is to say, among those with an annual income of over $100,000, 1 in every 3 people was not living a comfortable life. And the main reason for this situation is that whenever their income increases, they also expand their living expenses and enjoyment levels. This reveals a harsh psychological truth. When your annual salary is $50,000, you will think that reaching $100,000 will solve all your financial problems. When your annual salary reaches $100,000, that so-called finish line keeps moving further back because your spending level always rises along with the growth of your income. It is like a treadmill. Unless you deliberately design a stop button for it, this treadmill will keep running non-stop. According to a report by Fox Business in 2025, as disclosed by internal data from Bank of America, approximately 19% of high-income families are currently in the predicament of being moonlighters. That is, they rely solely on their next salary to make ends meet. And this report directly attributes this phenomenon to lifestyle inflation. That is, the growth rate of living expenses is completely in sync with the growth rate of income. When your neighbor drives a BMW, when your colleague enthusiastically talks about the renovation of their kitchen, when your Instagram feed is filled with various vacation photos and new purchases, the baseline for a normal life rises accordingly. At this point, you no longer compare yourself with the national median level, but rather with people in the same tax bracket. And to keep up with this group, the cost is extremely high. Now, let's take a broader perspective, because this is far more than just a matter of individual choices. At the macroeconomic level, there is a theoretical framework that can explain why this phenomenon occurs so commonly. The US economy has shown a dual-track recovery pattern, just like the letter K shape of 2 branches. The upper branch represents the relatively wealthy households, those who have assets, investment portfolios, and property net worth. Their wealth has grown significantly during this period. The lower branch represents all the others, those who mainly rely on salary income. They are suffering from inflation, high interest rates, and soaring living costs, and their economic situation is either stagnant or has already regressed. In March 2026, CNBC reported that a recent analysis by the consulting firm Kearney revealed a finding that challenged the traditional perception regarding where the 2 branches of the K-shaped recovery lie. You might think that if your annual income reaches $160,000 or more, you are firmly on the upward branch of the K-shaped recovery diagram, i.e. the upper class. But Kearney's data provided a negative answer. The truth is not necessarily so. The company's report identified a specific group of families, which they aptly referred to as those walking on thin ice. Although these people have high incomes, they also bear equally high fixed expenses, huge mortgages, child support payments, car loans, and various debt repayment costs. Their income is almost completely consumed by these expenses before it even reaches them at the beginning of the month. If any disruption in income occurs, they will have no buffer and no reserves to withstand the risks. Their economic collapse will be immediate and severe. Katie Thomas, the head of the Kearney Consumer Institute, spoke out bluntly. The assumption that the A-shaped recovery, upper class, can always be immune from economic shocks is completely wrong. The data from Moody's Analytics also supports this view. Currently, the top 20% of earners contribute approximately 60% of total consumer spending. This highly concentrated consumption structure means that if the economic conditions of these high-income families are squeezed, the resulting ripple effects will affect the entire macroeconomy, while another 46 million people are in the elite economy category, with an annual income of over $100,000. However, the wealth gap between these 2 groups is continuing to widen, and the group in the middle, those who have decent salaries but are struggling to cope with the high cost of living, are increasingly becoming marginalized groups overlooked by the social economic system. This is precisely where the danger of the high-income poverty phenomenon lies. It is not merely a matter of poor personal financial management or irresponsibility. It reflects a specific economic structure. In this structure, although nominal wage levels have risen, the various costs necessary to maintain a middle-class lifestyle. You can do all the right things. Obtain a high-level academic degree, find a decent job, earn a generous salary. But ultimately, you may still find your financial situation extremely fragile. And the deterioration of the situation often begins here. Because, when income cannot cover all expenses, the resulting funding gap can only be filled by borrowing. According to data from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, in the third quarter of 2025, the total household debt in the United States reached an all-time high of $18.6 trillion US. By the fourth quarter, the default rate of all outstanding debts had risen to 4.8%. This was the highest level since 2017, and the proportion of credit card borrowers who were in severe default, i.e. overdue for 90 days or more, reached a level not seen since 2008. Please carefully consider this fact. We are witnessing a resurgence of credit card debt default rates to the levels seen during the 2008 crisis. Moreover, this phenomenon is not limited to the low-income borrowing group. The Harris poll found that in the past 2 years, the debt default rate for families with an annual income of $150,000 or more has soared by nearly 20%. Its growth rate is even faster than that of the middle and low-income groups. In terms of savings, the 2026 Emergency Savings Report, released by Bankrate, shows that only 19% of Americans managed to increase their emergency savings in 2025. The US News pointed out that 43% of Americans lack sufficient savings. If they encounter an emergency expense of $1,000, they have to resort to borrowing to cope. Even more than a third of Americans admitted that their savings are not enough to cover a month's living expenses. So, what is the actual level of personal savings rate? As of February 2026, this indicator stood at 4.0%. At first glance, this seems reasonable. But if we look back to the early 1970s, while at the same time, they are burdened with the highest level of debt in history. Now, please connect these seemingly isolated points together. We are dealing with a group of people whose nominal income in dollar amounts is higher than that of any previous generation. However, they spend more, borrow more, save less, and are under greater financial pressure. This is exactly the true portrayal of high-income poor. The crux of the matter is not the salary figure printed on your offer letter. Ultimately, it is about the number in your bank account at the end of the month. And for an astonishing number of Americans, that number is almost zero, where problems are merely presented, but no solutions are offered. If you are watching this video and realize that you are also in the predicament reflected by these numbers, then please listen to the suggestions given by the data analysts and financial planners. First of all, and I know this might sound rather basic, but data shows that most people tend to overlook this step. You need to conduct a thorough review of your cash flow. What you're examining is not your income, but your cash flow. June, a certified financial planner in Beverly Hills, pointed this out in the CNBC report. The clients he serves are all high-income families. The picture changes completely. In his view, the main culprit is the high fixed expenses, especially housing expenses. If your housing expenses, including mortgage or rent, plus taxes, insurance and maintenance costs, consume 28 to 30% or more of your total income, then your financial structure is already in a very vulnerable and easily shaken state. The second point, you must consciously break the vicious cycle of lifestyle creep. This does not mean leading a monk-like life. The true meaning is, rather than actively make choices to save money. The third point, establishing liquidity. It is not just about net worth, it is more about liquidity. If you, without the assistance of a credit card, cannot even afford a $2,000 car repair fee, then even if you have a $400,000 home equity, it has no practical significance at all. The analysis report by Kearney cited another certified financial planner, Justin Rice, made a clear statement on this. The magnitude of financial stress is not determined solely by income levels. It depends on your financial flexibility, not the old expenses level before your two lifestyle upgrades. The fourth point, resisting the comparison trap. This might be the most difficult one to achieve. Your spending level should be adjusted according to your own financial goals, rather than by referring to the consumption behaviors of your colleagues. The person driving a leased Mercedes luxury car and living in a luxurious apartment might be just one paycheck away from financial crisis. That is, if their salary is cut even once, they will be in trouble. You have no way of knowing the full picture of their balance sheet. What you see is merely their glamorous lifestyle. If your financial planning is merely to imitate, to fall into the category of high income poor, in the end, the key point lies in the United States in 2026, the value of a $100,000 annual salary has long since lost its former significance. In some cities, even before you spend a single dollar of your disposable income, your earnings have already been reduced by half due to taxes and living costs. The K-shaped economy has torn the middle class into two groups. Some are actively accumulating wealth, while others can only struggle in place. And the dividing line between these two groups is not merely a matter of income level. Among families with an annual income of over $100,000, as many as 36% are in a state of living paycheck to paycheck, relying entirely on their next salary to make ends meet. Among this group of high-income individuals with six-figure incomes, nearly one-third admit that they are currently facing financial difficulties and are struggling to make ends meet. The total amount of household debt has just reached an all-time high, and the default rate on debts has also risen to an unprecedented level in the past decade. This is not a story about people's poor financial management skills. Rather, it is a story about a system. This system quietly redefines what true financial security. Many people have not yet updated their established concepts to match this new reality. If this video has sparked your thoughts, please click the subscription button. Also, please share it with those who are in need of hearing these contents. See you in the next video.